first. Let's understand who it is that is your audience, and then let's understand what it is you want your audience to do. And that is what, at the very root of it, a buyer persona is. It's trying to flesh out the audience in a way that can help guide you to writing content that will resonate better with the person who is looking at your copy.
Welcome to the Magnificent Marketing Podcast, where we interview the top marketing experts in the world and keep you up to date on all the changes and best practices to help you grow your business and stay on the cutting edge. Welcome to the show.
Hello, everyone. I'm here today with Priscilla McKinney, and Priscilla is a keynote speaker for all things marketing and is also the CEO and resident Mama Bird, leading a team of creative peeps at Little Bird Marketing. As a boutique marketing agency, they specialize in better-than-your-average bear branding, design, campaign, and content strategies with award-winning results. Priscilla is also a prolific blogger and host of Ponderings from the Perch, a modern podcast for the modern entrepreneur where she discusses the truth about entrepreneurship, marketing best practices, managing creatives, company culture, and other marketing oddities. Priscilla personifies creativity, entrepreneurship, and authentic leadership, inspiring others to truly carve out their own path of success in a uniquely funny, no-nonsense, and sometimes slightly irreverent way. And today, we are going to talk about how to develop buyer personas when your clients won't let you talk to their customers. Priscilla, how are you doing today?
I'm great, but you know that whole list of things that I do on my podcast, for some reason, we don't have included in there that I like to play my auto harp, but I will try and refrain from playing my auto harp on your podcast, David.
Well, I think we might make you. I will say, you did make me say the word entrepreneur a lot there, and that was very tough on me.
Okay, I'm sorry. That's better than starring in the movie The Rural Juror. So, other things that you can't pronounce, but.
Absolutely. Well, I'm super excited to talk to you. I know we mentioned discussing this topic a long time ago, and it's very intriguing. And when I first brought it up to you, you were jumping all over it. So I'm very, very interested in what you have to say, because I do realize, and I think most people do realize, to develop, great buyer personas, you need to have conversations. But sometimes you are stuck in a corner where you are not given the opportunity, especially if you're an agency and customers or clients hold their customers closer to the vest for a variety of reasons. Some of them legit, some of them not so legit probably, but, it does come up. But before we get going into all your awesome advice and tips, I just want you to first start off by go ahead and explain what a buyer persona is.
Yeah, well, a buyer persona is really, in the most simple way, putting an avatar, if you will, or just putting a face to a name. Let's just make it that way. I don't really like talking in a lot of marketing jargon. But if you're going to write a letter to someone, the first thing that you write is, "Dear so-and-so," right? So who is this so-and-so? And before you can write anything, you need to know who you're writing to. And so, we can call it all kinds of things, a buyer persona, ideal client persona, something that goes along the buyer's journey, and all these things we like to talk about in marketing. But really, it is funny to me that in the real world, as we operate as humans, we're very in tune with who we're talking to, and then we walk to work and we sit down at the desk and we start writing copy without thinking who we're writing to. And this is a real disconnect, and that's where a buyer persona enters. People many times come into my office and say, "Hey, Priscilla, we need you to build this website or write copy for a website or get us on this social media thing." Okay, I'm exaggerating a little bit. And so they're asking me to do certain things. And I like to try and help them ask better questions. Like, listen, I'm happy to manage your Facebook for you, or I'm happy to whatever it is they ask me to do. But who are you talking to? First, let's understand who it is that is your audience, and then let's understand what it is you want your audience to do. And that is what, at the very root of it, a buyer persona is. It's trying to flesh out the audience in a way that can help guide you to writing content that will resonate better with the person who is looking at your copy.
That's awesome. Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
No, I have a horrible habit of saying "so" at the end of my sentences, so I'll leave it alone. You can see from there, I just love taking apart these kind of, marketing terms and saying, look, it's really not that difficult. In the past, people talked about demographic information, like it's a male, it's a female, it's this age, it's that. Yes, personas, I guess, is that, but often that information is too broad. So for the intents and purposes of today, you and I speaking, when you ask me what is a buyer persona or an ideal client persona, let's say that let's get more specific, and not even more specific like, oh, they are 42. I don't mean that kind of specific. I mean, let's start talking about some of the nuanced differences that, different people who are reading your copy, who are they? Can we divide them in other categories that are more meaningful, more qualitative than quantitative? So quantitative demographics, male, female, this age, this kind of high school, degree, this kind of education, those things only take us so far. But then we have to really learn about this person. And that's, I think, for what you and I want to talk about today, we want to focus on, talking about how to really flesh out this persona better. Even without getting access to, directly to the clients in the world where let's talk about the unideal world.
Right, and that's what we're going to be talking about. But I wanted to set the stage for, in a perfect world, what do we want? What's a complete buyer persona? And I think you did a very good job of explaining that. It's, in the past, I guess 3-4 years ago, as recent as that, when people would say buyer persona, they really were talking. Man, I don't even have. I put it out of my head so much that I don't even have it. But like target audience or whatever, where it was title, demographic, and so forth. Now, buyer persona takes into why they made a decision. Who how did they go about that? Speak to those pain points, and obviously to get there best is to be able to talk to the person. And let's go ahead and give a shout out to Adele Ravella, who develops, is buyer persona, the buyer persona guru, at buyer persona, buyerpersona.com, the whole work. So she owns that and does an amazing job. And I've read her book a couple of times and had her on this podcast. And yes, we went through, and she's done a wonderful job of explaining how to do it. But sometimes, either be it resources or access, it's possibly not possible. So should you just say, oh, forget it, let's just guess, or are there better ways to go about it? And that's what we're going to be talking about today. In an unideal world, you put that perfectly, how can we get there? So, okay, so you've explained that wonderfully. You've explained why they're important. If you're going to talk to somebody, you got to know who you're talking to. So we know what we would rather have, but, okay, we can't do that. So now, this is where I'd love to spend a lot of time. Let's dig into creating a buyer persona when you don't have the access, you don't have the resources, you might not have the budget, whatever it might be. How can somebody get something that's much better than nothing? Let's dig into that.
Okay, yeah, and I would agree. So, to preface it and say, yeah, it is ideal to be able to, get all the information directly from the source, because who knows the customers better than the customers, right? So I don't want to hear from the CEO what he thinks of the customers, ideally. And so people then go about it, just to kind of do this logically, people go about it through surveys, which tell us only so much. That's quantitative. Then they go into really amazing interviews, which is what she's amazing at, and that starts unleashing and unlocking, unpacking the qualitative aspects for it. And we would refer to those as more like psychographics, like why are they making that decision? What are they doing? So you're right. Then we're in the next best thing, which is the unideal world where we can't get access to clients. And there's a couple of reasons for that. Sometimes we can't get access because maybe the powers that be with the company that we're working with just aren't really sure why we should be doing this. And I don't have that kind of buy-in yet. And so they're not going to just open up their Rolodex of their customers and let me call and talk with them and do a survey or do an interview or, do anything like that. So in that unideal world, I guess my next step is to think about who on the team, who can I get in the room, who deals with the real customers, who's the closest connect to them. And I think that's really important, because just because the CEO may hire me doesn't mean the CEO is really in touch with what's actually going on at a company, or why people are buying, or what they're buying, or how long it takes for them to buy the company's products. And so what's really important is to try and get as close as you can to who is actually interacting with the customers.
Okay.
So I think that's key.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. Yeah, and I'm sure you have a bunch of other stuff you want to talk about, but let's just dig into that real quick. So what have you seen works? Like, obviously, we're talking about sales and CSR, probably, department. So what have you seen works really well? Is it like a monthly powwow, weekly chat? Hey, what are you hearing? What's going on? Is this, who should be in that meeting? Is it marketing? Is it the CEO? Or just talk about in your experience, what have you seen work well with this part of getting to our buyer persona through talking to the people who talk to the customers?
Right. Oh, that's awesome. You know what you said about, is this weekly, is this monthly? I don't talk about personas on a really regular basis with a client. It's one of those things I do as a deep dive when we first start. And really, unless we're having issues with particular copy, or with a landing page, or with lack of conversion, or something like that, we don't always go all the way back to square one and look at, is there something wrong in the persona? Have we missed something? We do, though, every couple of years. I think you need to, or when you relaunch a product or launch something new, I do think you have to go back to the personas. But to me, the personas aren't an everyday thing in terms of reviewing them. They are an everyday thing, as in when I'm about to sit down and write social copy, even as simple as a tweet, I look at two things in front of me: the client's persona and their approved list of hashtags. I don't write anything without looking at that first. But, so to me, it becomes something that we do as a deep dive initially. But then I go on autopilot with it, not meaning autopilot I don't think about it again. Autopilot as I trust what we've done, and it is a foundational piece of everything I do from there on out.
No, you're right. I mean, no, I hear you. I was just throwing that out there. But yeah, you're right. I've never heard anybody who says they have buyer persona reviews every single month or anything like that. It's a deep dive at the beginning, or at the beginning of any new launch or whatnot. So that's great. Right. So it's about just getting it taken care of up front. So, but let's talk about that. Getting utilizing the conversation part of building, getting to where we want to get here.
Definitely.
In that meeting, why don't you talk about that?
Well, you asked who should be in that meeting, and you asked, should it be marketing and should it be salespeople? And I say yes and yes. And I think this is the problem when we don't include people in the demographic information and in the persona development. It really sets a tone for the rest of the marketing. So if we single out and say, oh, the marketing people will be in for this and not the sales, we've really got a problem later on. We need to get the sales. You mentioned CSR and everything. So I would say you get as many of those people in as you can. And I know that it is tricky, and this is where you have to really, be worth your weight in gold as an agency and as a, people manager. Is, a lot of times if a company does not have a persona development, I can already tell you that they probably don't have a really strong connect between their marketing and their sales departments. Because if they had already been connected, they would have already seen that they have a problem. Like, oh, that's interesting. You're not, the marketing people are not talking to the same people we're actually talking to in sales. And that's really kind of uncovers the real reason why we need personas so heavily, is because in most companies, there's a strong disconnect between marketing and sales. So my short answer is, who's in that room? Absolutely as many marketing people as you can get, as many sales people. I don't find it very helpful to bring in high C-level people unless they really are in the trenches, because I find that if they're in the room, other people shut up. And it's really the other people that I need to start talking to get really good persona.
That's a great pointer. Yeah. So when you get them to start talking, what kind of questions are you what kind of questions are you asking them, and what kind of information are you drawing out, strategically?
Well, first of all, I try and do some, I am horrible at sports references, but what do you call it? Some softballs. I try and throw something out there that's really easy.
Softballs, that's right.
Okay, so I really should stop even trying to use sports references.
You just nailed it. You knocked it out of the park.
Okay, cool. Oh, thanks. Touchdown. So anyway, I start with a few things and kind of get them to loosen up a little bit with the simple, silly demographics. What's their demographic information? What's their job? What's their level of seniority? And then I move them into some things that start making them think about them as a person. So I might ask things like, well, okay, walk me through a day in their life. And inevitably, they'll start talking with me about, oh, well, the things they do in work life. And I'm like, wait, let's go back a little bit. Before this person got to the office, what were they doing? And I start just introducing without saying directly, this person is a person, because if I do that, I think it shocks their system and then they think, oh, I've got to, they just start going down a weird path. But if I just kind of bring it to them gently and go, well, no, just tell me how did they get up? Are they very disciplined? Are they someone who was in the gym by 5 or is this someone who's taking care of kids and can't get in until 9 because they're running this person here? These kinds of things affect the persona. And so the simple things like that, like making them see a full day of this person's life, starts getting them to, think about them and ask more qualitative questions. So I think that's kind of my first little psychological move to get them into thinking that way. My favorite all-time question to ask is, what is keeping this person up at night?
Yeah.
And that starts all kinds of interesting questions. And sometimes, again, they start telling me about they're trying to increase, productivity at work, or they need to sell more widgets or whatever. I'm like, yes, I get that. But what specifically? Because I think we all know that we don't have general work concerns that keep us up at night. It's something pretty specific. I don't know about the last sleepless night you have, but typically when you have a sleepless night, you're fixating on something at work.
Yeah,
so
most likely.
What does that fixation look like? And so what happens from that is that people start thinking about this person, and then they start remembering conversations they've had with actual customers. And that's really what I'm trying to get to. I'm trying to get them to remember a particular customer they worked with and see the patterns in the many years of conversations that they've had. And they all, humans very, very, very much seek out patterns. So all of a sudden they'll start remembering them. Oh yeah, this person, was always getting pressure from the top executive. Oh yeah, that I always hear that. People getting, look, my boss needs me to get this thing done, or what. So it starts triggering that, and that what keeps people up at night, I think, is really, really strong.
I'll just tell you, it worked on me right now. I want you to keep going, but it really just worked on me because I was just trying to apply it to a certain client right now, and I was thinking about it. And all the stuff that they would be talking about, in addition to, the direct, product and services that this company offers, there's all kinds of other things that they worry about besides just your vendor relationship. They have all these other things that are going on. So, I mean, if nothing else, it helps give you some content ideas, to help with the content marketing side, there's going to be some residual benefits of, to be helpful with your content in addition to developing your marketing messages. So, I'll just tell you, it just worked. So it works. So go, keep going. This is some great stuff. I love it.
Well, let me give you an example in that, because then we can go back into some questions. But you're totally following where I'm going with them. Is that, for example, let's say you're working with a dental practice, or you're working with an orthodontist or something like that, and they start telling me, well, what's keeping their buyer is a mom. Okay, women make the decisions in the household for health-related things, especially when it involves children. So we know it's a mom. Okay, we can get all demographic on it, but then we start talking about the quality. What is keeping her up at night? Well, maybe what's keeping her up at night has nothing to do directly with their teeth, but maybe it has to do with their kids' eating habits, or maybe how do I get my kids out and being healthy? These are, how do I reduce sugar in their life? The mom's fixating about the craziest things, or how am I going to get from here to there tomorrow?
No, I hear you. One of our clients. is a dental client. A couple clients are dental, and we have a mom's corner, and that's what we've gravitated towards. And everything you just mentioned was like half of those things were in our upcoming next content push. We had a content meeting and we brainstormed, and those are the kinds of things that came up. So yeah, I mean, all that kind of stuff. You're right. I mean, you're so right. I love it.
So let's take it a little bit deeper though, because the mom may be fixated where you're like, just for example, let's just take one lead. Oh my gosh, are my kids healthy? Am I, are they eating too much sugar? And I keep telling them not to eat it, but I'm not always there. This is maybe a working mom. They have what they're really, what's keeping them up at night is, am I a bad mom? Right? So how do we do something that helps this mom feel like she's not a bad mom? Maybe we can create a guide. We don't need to preach to her anymore that sugar is bad, but what if we created some kind of a fun little form that's like a 3-page download she can do, which is kind of like a mini science experiment to show kids, let them pour out, okay, here, put out a can of Coke and then put out a bowl and have them, put in the 9 tablespoons of sugar into a bowl that is in that can of Coke. Now she's doing something hands-on with her kids and teaching them about health. So you've not only solved first of all, she feels like a good mom because she actively did something. And then secondly, she's actually is doing something, for their health. And all moms feel better when we actually do something with our kids, whether it's get out and play or actually show them something, but it's something that's interactive. And so you solve that problem. And then you're like, once you have built rapport with her and shown her that you've done your homework and that you care about her in a general life, she's more likely to be like, see, that orthodontist is very trustworthy, wow, they really care about me and my family. I mean, this, they didn't have to do this. That's the kind of feeling you want. So that's where we're getting with that, how what keeps them up at night. So you can see from here, of course, I'd love to hire a market researcher and find that information out, but already we've dug into some really qualitative issues that really any thinking person who sits down and really takes the time could get to the bottom of it,
Yeah,
and I definitely am not trying to replace it. There's amazing things that can be done through market research.
No, yeah, absolutely. No, we've talked about. I mean, there's people. I've talked about it, and 100,000 people have talked about how to build, direct buyer personas. What we're talking about is how to do it when you're limited, and that's
Absolutely.
So. Yeah, let's not make any excuses for what we're trying to accomplish here, because I promise you, it exists. It exists with resources. It exists with timing. It just exists. A lot of people don't have $8,000 or $9,000 to invest, or $5,000 to invest in buyer persona research correctly.
Right.
But I will say, if you do have the money, do it. Okay, do it. It'll pay off its weight in gold. But if you don't, that's what. So again, I'm not making any apologies. You don't make any apologies. We're actually going to be helping a ton of people that are in this situation, which is probably the majority of people. So keep going if you got more on the questioning.
Yeah, I've got plenty more. So I always ask about what a simple thing where I kind of start again with the softball is saying, okay, well, what problems does your actual ideal client have that your company solves? Everybody can get back into this conversation. I kind of try and bring it back and forth because to me, like I said, I'm managing people in this room, trying to get them to not get all, touchy-feely because some of them will weird out on me, but trying to say that I have to constantly kind of keep bringing it back to their product and service. So I think that's a pretty easy one. I don't need to explain that. People, it helps their life. It makes things easier. It's all more profitability, whatever that is. But where I go next is I talk about the kinds of traits that this persona values most. So let's kind of go back in the case of this mom. A lot of people will say to me, people value honesty. They'll throw out these just real, obvious answers to me. Total platitude. And so then I really try and dig with that. Well, for example, this mom, a trait that she values most, is, of course she values honesty, but she values, time efficiency. Okay. Please don't freaking waste my time, So when we think about that, we think about how short do we make, a blog post. Now, you may have the opposite. You may have some clients that you're working with, something they value. If you're working maybe in a tech company, maybe they value, written proof and a lot of data to back up. What traits do they look for? Like someone who always backs up their data and sources it. Okay, well, that's a very different persona. And so those kinds of things begin to inform how long should our blog post be? How, quick and down and dirty? Do they value, people who say things eloquently, or do they value people who just get in and get out? And that starts kind of giving us some indications about a little bit of the messaging, maybe the voice, the tone, the personality that the brand needs to take in order to talk to this persona. And I'm careful about that to explain this to people, because we're not trying to say, okay, you have one persona who really values, succinct, straightforward talk. Well, that doesn't mean your whole brand has to become succinct and straightforward. It means that when you are writing copy for this persona specifically, you need to be really succinct. For example, if I'm going to write to you about a blog about, taking a sabbatical out of your career, and you've already identified that, look, I'm just a high decision maker. I value people who are quick to the point. Please just give it to me straight. Then I might even write my sentence structure very staccato, peace, period, meaningfulness, period, and so then I might write the thing, consider a sabbatical. I may never put any fluff into any of those sentences. But if it's someone who values, this, more of a, please, lull me into this, type of a persona, then I'm going to write very differently. So I just want to be clear that this means that it doesn't dictate the whole brand. It just dictates how I'm going to talk when I am exclusively talking to this persona.
Yeah, I mean, the buyer personas, help me if I'm wrong here. I mean, the way I look at buyer personas is where they help you are your marketing message and your content. And marketing messages means banner ads, means titles of emails that go out, it means the tone of those, it means blog titles, ad copy to get people to click. Like that kind of stuff is where this is going to make a difference. It's not going to change your branding per se, although there is going to be some shift, some of that's going to carry over. But right, I mean, we get this information, and how we apply it are those types of things, our banner ads, ad copy. Okay, good. All right.
Yeah, and if it affects the whole overall brand, it will be because patterns emerged amongst the several personas that they developed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Cool.
So I know we don't have a whole lot of time, but I'll give you maybe one or two of my other favorite ones I use. But I like to ask people where this persona goes for information. And I think this is really telltale, because it starts conversations about, like, is this someone who constantly searches online? If I have any problem, right toe doesn't feel good today. Do I Google it? Is that the kind of persona that I am? Or is this someone who only waits, to hear about it from the coworkers? So, do I get my information around the water cooler, or do I only talk with family members and reach out for that, or do I, am I the person who will pick up the phone and call a mentor for this issue, or how do people actually go about getting information? And that can inform not only the copy that we write for them, but it also can start helping us understand for different personas there are different places that we need to show up. Their eyeballs are in different places.
Fantastic point, and let me throw a curveball at you. There you go with your
sports analogy, nice.
Okay, so you want to have a big upfront meeting. I definitely know that there has to be people that could get a lot of, just from normal conversations with salespeople, you can get all this stuff, right? Now you get to the point of, and thank you for bringing that up, because everything I said was missing component is where do these messages go, right? Is it, do you do pay-per-click? Do you do Facebook? Do you do strong, big-time referral programs, right? Right. So that's a great point. Thanks. I missed that, and I appreciate you bringing that back around. So there's that. But my gut tells me that a lot of this stuff will be answered, and you're in this meeting, and you're this big front thing, and then you say, okay, now where did these leads come from? Where does your business come from? And there'll be crickets, because nobody asked. and nobody was taking, and you need time. You need a whole new plethora of leads coming in before okay, guys, well, and girls, start asking now, right? Now we need to know, where they find you. So I know we haven't been doing that now, but we need to know that. Have you ever come across that? And if so, like, do you circle back around to that like later because you can still get a lot of it done and then just add that component later, or what do you do in that scenario? Or what have you done?
Okay. Yeah, this is a good question. So, for example, your gut instinct would say, well, let's go look at the data, even because most people, even if they have the data, they're not looking at it. I find that all the time. Oh, yeah, okay, it takes me like a week working with a client until someone can surface the person who actually has access into Google Analytics and into who can see these reports on Facebook. Nobody's been looking at this stuff. So let's just get rid of the idea that as if people are looking at their data, because they're not. So that's kind of pretend, and that's why it's important to get everybody in the meeting to understand, look, nobody here knows why people are coming in already. That's why you hired a firm. So we're gonna kind of just get rid of that idea. Even if they came up with data and told me, hey, everybody comes in through Facebook, I still wouldn't take it. I still think that doesn't mean because people have come in that through Facebook that then, okay, so let's go put more money on Facebook. The question is, have ideal clients come in through Facebook? Because we all know in our businesses that not everybody is the most ideal client. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to say no to some clients who constantly want us to customize our programs or completely pull us out of the realm of what we actually solve. And we want to say yes quicker and get more of the ideal client in, the person who truly values what we do, thinks that what we're doing is so valuable that it's a total steal for how much we charge, and we want more of those people, right? So even if at that meeting someone could tell me, yeah, hey, if we're talking about the where, all of the leads we have right now comes through Facebook, fine. Okay, there's a whole nother conversation, it's a whole nother point. What we might discover through doing persona development is that there's a place we're not showing up that we would have much larger numbers if we had actually shown up there. And so I kind of think it's not a helpful conversation to have when you're developing personas. I think indirectly you get the answer, but I really try and keep people from really thinking about, oh, someone told me they came in through Google, or someone told me, because these kinds of things are super unreliable. And 100%. I would rather start with personas and now take it from this information that we've learned and now set this into place, and now let's track it. And now let's see if that original Facebook, stacks up. Maybe now none of the ideal clients are coming through from there. Just for example, if I go look at my stats today, I can see that I get far more engagement on Facebook. I get far more, and what I mean by that is visits to my website, because if you actually look at my Facebook account, it looks like we're incredibly lonely, like nobody ever talks to us, because we are a complete inbound company. So but as soon as someone hits us on Facebook, all of the links bring them to our website where they aren't anonymous anymore, and we can see what's going on, and we can track what's going on. So they don't end up staying on Facebook, and so it almost looks like it's, crickets out on our Facebook, but that's, that's by design. So, for example, I can see how many people came to our website through Facebook. Let me tell you, I get tons of traffic. But when I look at the actual people who have converted and closed, I get the most amount of highly qualified leads closed, converted, and paid through LinkedIn.
Okay.
So you can tell me in these meetings I know that because we follow it all the way through. So you could tell me in this meeting like, oh, everybody tells me they see us through Facebook. Yes, but do they convert through Facebook? They actually end up paying us through Facebook. And so that's why I think some of those conversations aren't super helpful.
But the main gist of what you're saying, just to kind of wrap it all up here, is we have all these conversations going on, so we can get what's going on. What are you hearing? What are you literally hearing, right? Because that kind of information is great. But don't bother them too much about the stuff that you can gain from analytics, because you don't need access to the customers you better have access. They better let you have access to their analytics. And now if they don't, well, then, what are we doing here? So
exactly.
So that is obtainable. So where it's not like, it's okay, fine, you can't talk to your customers, but there's no reason you can't find this other information out, at least even over time, even because they might. Some companies don't have Google Analytics set up, is what we find out. So but you might need some time.
I just passed out on my floor, but
it happens. I've lived it. I've seen it. I see it.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean in a month or two you can't get some good data. Once you do get it set up. So, but that's obtainable. So that's a wonderful point, and so also a wonderful point that you made, that when you start asking people, they're going to guess. They don't know. And even if they ask people, they're going to say social media, right? And you're going to be like, all right.
Yeah, or they're going to tell you whatever they're comfortable with and what they want you to do, and that's not really the point. Yeah. But so here's my last one that I think is a good one. I do like to ask who this person is trying to impress, and I think sometimes that helps us decide, look, do I need to make long form? Do I need to make a guide? Do I mean, all kinds of stuff. So there's a good bunch of questions here, but the last one I'll end with that I think is really great, that ends up in a very long conversation in these meetings and starts revealing a lot about more of the psychology, or what do we call the psychographics behind this persona. I always ask, what do you think your ideal client is too embarrassed to tell you?
Wonderful. That's a wonderful question.
One of the ones I get from one of my personas is that I have these confessional moments, where I'll have a CEO or a marketing director literally take me aside and say, I don't know what a hashtag is. I know I should know. So just for example, knowing what they're too embarrassed to admit really to, a whole room of people is very, very powerful to understand then how we can write to this person, because in that case, we can do things that really serve them and kind of say things that kind of cover their butt. Do you ever have I'll be sitting down with someone and somebody will be walking up and I'm like, oh my gosh, I know that person, but I can't remember their name. Oh, this is going to be so embarrassing. This is going to be so embarrassing. And I say to my husband,
how you doing?
Yeah, hey. I say to the person I'm with, oh, whatever you do, ask them their name. I'm supposed to know it. And so basically that person throws themselves under the bus, introduces them, and gets their name. And I'm like, oh, how you doing? I'm so glad you guys could meet, right? So it's like that with personas. We do this work because we want to unembarrass the person who desperately does want to connect with us, but is not really sure how to do it.
Awesome. Yeah, I can see how those questions those you didn't just come, pull those out of a hat. I mean, you can tell those have been through trial and error, and you've zeroed in on those are the ones that
absolutely.
Because some of those are very unique questions, and I really appreciate you sharing those with us, because I can see how that's. It's going to help me, so thank you personally.
Yeah.
Those
You're
are some
welcome.
good ones, because we deal with this a lot, and a lot of the times, all we have is access to our clients and our brains, right, and the analytics. But the analytics, again, can only tell you so much, but they can tell you some of the things that you need. So, okay, that's awesome. Do you have anything else before I continue on here?
No, but we do have a free persona guide that people can download on our website. We're just at littlebirdmarketing.com/resources, and there is actually a persona guide where people can trial and error, try if they want to DIY it a little bit and get into it and understand it. I think it's helpful, but I can't express. I've worked with you on several projects, and I think the beauty of getting in and talking with someone who is an expert on inbound marketing. It's just the work is so much deeper, but we do try and at least get people to see a little bit, behind the curtain what this work looks like.
Yeah, awesome. So at the very end of the day, though, what are the absolute must-knows that you have to find out if you're going to even do a little bit good, right? What are the absolute must-knows, the bottom-level table stakes that you have to have?
I guess you have to know why you're even coming to the market. I have a lot of people ask me how, and they ask me where. Okay, so where, what channels do I show up on? And then they ask me a lot of how, what's some tactics and tools and stuff like that. And I'm like, before you even get to this and before you even start personas, I just say, why? Why you? Why must you come to the market? Why must you be a company? Why must you create a website? What is it that is so special about you, for crying out loud? And so to me, it's really starting with that why. And that why, I think, then helps them understand. It gives them motivation to tap into the persona because they realize their purpose and what so much they want to impart to these people. So if they start from that, then I think that it just brings so much more meaning, and I think it can very quickly bring a lot of clarity to the persona process.
Gotcha. Now, this turned slightly negative here, I guess, but not really. But what are, before I have to let you go, what are some of the common mistakes you've seen people make here, though? Like, where do they fall short? Do they go down a rabbit hole they don't need to? What are some common things that you've seen that, hey, you're going to be doing all this. Hey, don't do this. This is a common mistake.
Well, I think a common mistake is that people follow trends way too much. Hey, everybody's on Facebook. I'll get on Facebook. Hey, everybody's talking about video. We'll start investing in video. Everybody's talking. I don't care what it is. If you don't stop and do this persona work and do the why work before you get in there, those are, in my opinion, just vehicles. And I talked about this. I talk about this a lot when I keynote, but I do a little quick poll. Raise your hand if you love Uber. Raise your hand if you love Lyft. And the room will be divided inevitably, depends on what city I'm in. And then I just say, okay, but here's the thing. When you got into Lyft or Uber last time, when was the last time you got in and just told the driver to take them wherever you want to go? And that, everybody's like, well, no, of course, you tell the driver where you want to go. Yes, but that's what we do with marketing. We decide what channel we're going to be on. And so if it's Facebook or it's LinkedIn or if it's blogging or if it, creating a video or it's on YouTube, whatever it is, and then we let that channel take us wherever it is that channel does. We don't think about that strategy from the very beginning, who our ideal customers are, and work only for them. So my biggest mistake is that people, think way too much about which channel as opposed to why, and really keep the strategy intact no matter what channel you move to.
Wonderful. Awesome. All right, before I let you go, do you have any parting thoughts?
No, I just freaking like you a lot, David. I think you guys do quality work, and I love talking about this stuff. We could talk about this stuff forever, but
best parting thought I've ever heard.
I highly recommend your work. I've seen it for so many years, and it's fun to have colleagues that we're all challenged with this, companies, especially, if we're working in small and mid-sized companies, we don't have the luxury of some of the big brands, and it's up for us then to be creative. And I think you and I share this approach of saying, let's pretend that they have no budget. What could we do? And then we work from there. And I think that's what keeps our work meaningful.
Yeah, and it's a challenge. It is a challenge, but it's a challenge that we're working through, and every day we get more clarity and better because I think both of us want to be able to bring big marketing solutions to small and medium-sized businesses. Of course, we both want to work with larger companies as well, but I'd say 95% of the marketplace is small and medium businesses, right? And they need help.
Absolutely.
And they need help more than being able to advertise on Yelp, right? And they need help. So that's what I think both of our companies strive for, and I feel like both of us do an amazing job at that, and I think both of us are continuing to learn and get better at it. So that's all you can do.
And I'll dispel this mystery. I have worked for very large contracts. We've had, multi-million-dollar contracts, but I'm just telling you, it's not any different. This myth is if you have to do something different that's small or big. I go into these big companies and they don't know who has the analytics either. So, I love the idea of just these things aren't any different. You still have to go back to the basics. You still have to do this work. You still have to work hard at it.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, Priscilla, you did mention how the resource you have, but how else can people continue to learn from you?
Well, I think the easiest way is to follow me on LinkedIn. Certainly, I've never been unapproachable, so anybody can email me at any time, Priscilla@littlebirdmarketing.com. I'm really a big connector, so if I can connect you with someone, I'd be happy to. People have done me a lot of favors connecting me with people, so I like to pay it forward on that. But LinkedIn probably the best way to actually reach me personally.
Okay, and just for the listeners out there, let me just spell your name. It's Priscilla, and then McKinney, because LinkedIn is funny if you don't spell it exactly correct.
Exactly.
All right, well, awesome, Priscilla. Until next time, and I'm wishing you a wonderful week.
Thanks. Happy marketing.
Yes, ma'am. All right, bye-bye.